The world is bursting with places so breathtaking they almost hurt to look at. Emerald forests, ancient cities, oceans that look like liquid jewels. But behind the postcard lies a harsh truth. Some countries don't want you there. Whether it's politics, danger, or ice-cold indifference, these are 10 nations where beauty comes with a locked door. Number 10. Luxembourg. On the surface, Luxembourg is a fairy tale in real life. Medieval castles perched on green hills, cobblestone streets leading to chocolate box cafes, and valleys so lush you half expect to see them on a fantasy movie poster. The country's wealth is obvious, not just in its architecture, but in its polished perfection. It's clean, safe, and orderly, the kind of place you'd expect to be warmly embraced as a traveler. But here's the twist. Many visitors describe the locals' attitude as, well, chilly. Not hostile, just politely distant, as if tourism is an inconvenience rather than a welcome source of connection. For travelers seeking immersive cultural warmth, Luxembourg can feel like being invited to a party where no one makes eye contact. Female travelers will feel safe physically, but socially, you might sense the invisible velvet rope. And perhaps that's the real heartbreak, a paradise you can see, touch, and taste, but never truly feel part of. Number 9. Solomon Islands. The Solomon Islands are the definition of a tropical paradise. Divers come from around the world to explore World War II shipwrecks in crystal-clear waters. Inland, dense rainforests shelter exotic birds, while remote villages maintain traditions untouched by modern tourism. On the surface, it's the kind of destination that travel dreams are made of. But the reality for tourists can be more complicated. In Honiara, the capital, petty crime like pickpocketing and bag snatching is common, especially in busy markets. Political unrest can flare up quickly, sometimes shutting down public transport or limiting movement. And then there's nature itself. The region is prone to earthquakes, cyclones, and the occasional dangerous wildlife encounter. Violent crime is rare, but not unheard of, particularly after dark in certain areas. For careful travelers, the islands still offer unforgettable experiences. But this isn't a carefree beach getaway. It's a place where your itinerary and safety plans should be as carefully prepared as your sunscreen and snorkel gear. Number 8. Guatemala. Guatemala's landscapes are spectacular, with volcanoes glowing at night, jungle-covered ruins like Tikal, and lakes so clear they reflect the sky like a mirror. Towns like Antigua are a blend of Spanish colonial charm and vibrant indigenous culture, offering colorful markets, ancient churches, and streets that feel like time capsules. But behind the beauty lies a serious safety challenge. Petty theft is common, but armed robberies also happen, even in popular tourist zones during the day. The gap between the rich and the poor is wide, and crime often targets those perceived to have wealth, which usually includes tourists. After dark, the risks increase sharply, and both locals and visitors tend to stay indoors. Solo female travelers should take extra precautions in crowded areas, where harassment and unwanted attention can occur. None of this makes Guatemala any less captivating. Still, it does mean you'll enjoy it best with situational awareness and a cautious approach. The reward? Some of Central America's most unforgettable sights. Number 7. Bolivia. Bolivia is pure adventure, with vast salt flats that turn into giant mirrors, bright red lagoons filled with flamingos, and cities clinging to the edges of mountains. For travelers willing to embrace a challenge, it offers a sense of discovery that more developed destinations have lost. But those challenges are real. Infrastructure in rural areas is limited, and buses may take hours longer than planned due to rough roads or blockades. Political protests can erupt suddenly, blocking access to airports or shutting down major routes. In high-altitude areas like La Paz or Potosi, altitude sickness can affect even experienced travelers. While most visits are trouble-free, female travelers in cities might face unwanted attention, especially in crowded or nightlife areas. The best approach here is patience and flexibility. Bolivia isn't for those seeking comfort and convenience, but for those chasing experiences you can't replicate anywhere else. The payoff? Stories that will stay with you long after you've left. Number 6. Russian Federation. Russia is immense, spanning 11 time zones, with a cultural and historical depth few places can match. From the onion domes of St. Basil's Cathedral to the icy expanse of Siberia, it's a country of unforgettable sights. Cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg are vibrant hubs of art, history, and architecture. Yet, visiting today comes with obstacles. Political tensions, especially surrounding the war in Ukraine, have strained relations with many countries. Visa requirements can be more restrictive, and visitors are expected to follow strict regulations. In some areas, foreigners may draw suspicion, and there's a sense of being watched in certain settings. In major cities, you can still enjoy a world-class travel experience with world-famous museums, theaters, and dining. But spontaneity is limited, and smaller towns may be less welcoming. Russia's treasures are still there, but right now, they're wrapped in a layer of bureaucracy and political caution that every traveler must navigate. Number 5. Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan has a surreal mix of desert emptiness and over-the-top architecture. The capital, Ashgabat, gleams with white marble buildings, and the door-to-hell gas crater burns endlessly in the middle of the Karakum Desert, a sight like no other on Earth. But exploring Turkmenistan isn't like visiting most countries. The government strictly controls tourism, and most travelers must be accompanied by a government-approved guide at all times. Certain regions are off-limits entirely, and spontaneous changes to your plans are nearly impossible. Tourist infrastructure is basic, especially outside Ashgabat, and bureaucracy can slow even the simplest activities. While crime rates are low, the constant supervision and lack of freedom make it a restrictive experience. If you're the type who likes to wander and discover on your own, this isn't the place for it. Turkmenistan's allure is real, but you'll see it through a very controlled lens. Number 4. Myanmar, Burma. Myanmar offers some of Southeast Asia's most stunning cultural and natural sights. The plains of Bagan, dotted with thousands of temples, are unforgettable, and inlay lakes, floating gardens, and stilt house villages feel like they belong in another era. But the country has been in political turmoil for years. The military junta's control has led to ongoing conflict, and certain regions are completely off-limits to foreigners. Even in accessible areas, sudden unrest can occur, disrupting travel plans or creating unsafe conditions. While most major tourist hubs are calm, rural areas can be unpredictable, and cultural norms can be more conservative. Female travelers may attract attention in less touristic regions and should dress modestly. Myanmar is still full of warmth and hospitality. Still, it exists within a fragile and sometimes dangerous environment, a destination where timing and caution are everything. Number 3. Afghanistan. Afghanistan's history and landscapes are unmatched, from the towering Hindu Kush mountains to ancient cities filled with centuries-old mosques, bazaars, and monuments. It's a place that has shaped empires and inspired poets for generations. Sadly, it remains one of the most dangerous countries for foreign visitors. Decades of conflict have left infrastructure devastated, and security risks are constant. Foreigners are high-profile targets for kidnappings or attacks, and independent travel without armed protection is virtually impossible. In May 2024, A gunman's attack in a crowded bazaar in Bamyan, a top tourist spot, killed 3 Spanish tourists and 3 Afghans, underscoring how quickly tourism can turn tragic. These aren't just headlines, they're warnings that safety here can vanish in an instant. Kidnappings, targeted violence, and extremist attacks remain real threats. For women, the situation is especially severe. Current laws heavily restrict movement, dress, and public presence, making tourism nearly unfeasible. Afghanistan is a destination many dream of visiting for its beauty and history. Still, for now, it can only be admired from afar. Number 2, Somalia. Somalia's beaches and reefs rival the Maldives, and its coastline stretches for more than 3,000 kilometers. In another world, Mogadishu could be a thriving tourist hub again. But the reality is stark. The country is plagued by terrorism, piracy, and violent crime. Foreign journalists, aid workers, and travelers have been kidnapped and held for ransom, sometimes for years. In one infamous case, 2 Western aid workers were abducted and endured over 90 days in captivity before a dramatic rescue. Infrastructure is virtually non-existent, and moving outside heavily guarded zones is incredibly risky. For female travelers, the dangers are amplified, with a high risk of harassment and assault. Somalia's natural beauty hides a landscape where the threat is constant, a place that, for most, is simply too dangerous to see in person. Number 1, North Korea. North Korea has mountains untouched by modern tourism, sweeping plains, and the surreal spectacle of Pyongyang's towering monuments. It's one of the most mysterious nations on Earth, and that's part of its pull. But visiting means submitting to strict government control. Your every move is monitored, your interactions staged, and your itinerary fixed. Breaking even a small rule can have devastating consequences. In 2016, American student Otto Warmbier was arrested for allegedly removing a propaganda poster from his hotel. He was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. 17 months later, he was returned to the U.S. in a coma, dying shortly after. Stories like his are why many travelers view North Korea not just as restrictive, but as dangerous. The country's beauty and intrigue come at a price. One mistake, even an innocent one, can cost your freedom. Or worse. The world is vast, and most of it welcomes you with open arms. But sometimes, the most responsible thing we can do as travelers is to love a place from a distance. These 10 countries remind us that wanderlust must be balanced with wisdom, and that the greatest journeys aren't always to the most forbidden places, but to the ones where we can truly connect, explore freely, and return home safely with stories worth telling. Until then, there are 185 other countries where your passport, your curiosity, and your sense of adventure will be genuinely welcomed. Choose those instead.